The following content is sponsored by KerenskyleGacy. Chewbacca is the last Mohican. Welcome back to my What Players Get Wrong series, delving into the issues with the new player experience. This episode is probably going to be the last, as past this point players are generally no longer considered new, and any remaining issues are generally things all players experience rather than restricted to new players. In this episode, I wanted to talk about status, fire rate, and multishot, and the differences between how they function on a normal rifle, continuous weapon, and a shotgun. We start with status chance. For those of you who may not know what status, also known as a proc, is, I will go over this briefly. Status chance is the percentage chance that when you fire your weapon, a damage type on your weapon will proc, which creates a negative effect on enemies. Proccing with a weapon that has radiation damage on it, for example, will cause that enemy to become able to receive friendly fire from its allies and temporarily become hostile to said enemies. The status listed is the estimated chance that you will deal a status proc of the damage types on your weapon. For example, 100% status means that every shot will proc something, with physical damage types like slash having a higher chance to proc than elementals. However, the confusion comes with shotguns and continuous weapons, which both treat status differently. For shotguns, the status listed is shared between the amount of pellets on the shotgun, so a shotgun with 50% status and 10 pellets means that every pellet only has a 5% chance of dealing a proc, but if every pellet hits the enemy, you collectively have a 50% chance of dealing at least one proc. Another thing the game does not tell players is if they reach 100% status before multishot mods, the formula changes entirely and now every pellet has a 100% chance to proc instead of 10% each. While only a few shotguns can reach this and requires dual stat mods that add heavy status, this is still something not explained to players at all. With continuous weapons, the status chance listed is actually per second, so a gamma core with a 50% status a second, for example, has a 50% chance to deal at least one status proc in a second of firing on an enemy. And because the majority of continuous weapons, if not all, deal damage 4 times in 1 second, that means each tick of damage has about 1/4 of the status chance listed as well. This also means that at 100% status per second, you only have a guaranteed chance to proc at least one of these ticks per second. In fact, you would need 400% status a second to get every damage tick to proc something, which is currently impossible even with high-tier Riven mods. This confusion gets even worse with multishot and fire rate, which are calculated differently on these weapon types. For normal weapons that fire bullets, excluding shotguns for the time being, multishot increases the chance that when you fire a bullet, another bullet will also fire but costs no ammo. With 100% multishot on a weapon, you have a guaranteed chance to fire another bullet and thus double your damage. Although while not explained to players, the UI adds multishot into the equation even though this is misleading. A weapon with 50% damage does not deal 100 damage with 100% multishot, rather the weapon now fires 2 shots dealing 50 damage each. So removing your multishot mods will show the true damage per shot on most weapons. For continuous weapons in the past, multishot would increase the amount of times a weapon would deal damage a second, as it would increase the amount of damage ticks, and fire rate would also do this. But this was changed a long time ago and restricted continuous weapons to 4 instances of damage per second. Multishot essentially behaves the same as damage mods on these weapons, boosting the damage by the amount listed. Fire rate, on the other hand, increases the amount of ammo used per second by the amount listed on the mod, while also increasing damage but at a lower rate. Generally speaking, this causes diminishing returns on the majority of weapons as the increase in ammo does not equate to an equal increase in damage. So while status, multishot, and fire rate are easy concepts to understand for normal guns, the fact that these rules change for shotguns and continuous weapons, and the fact that this is never adequately explained to players, can lead to tons of confusion. Players may attempt to build for status on the Sobek shotgun, only to find that they hardly proc anymore despite a higher status, or mod for multishot on a continuous weapon to find that it does not increase the status chance nor the amount of times it attacks per second. As for how to fix these, a new section on the codex mentioning these differences between normal guns, shotguns, and continuous weapons would be an invaluable addition, as the best players will get in-game currently is bits and pieces of info from the codex and from trial and error. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helped.